a journey that will look how radical new approaches in the built environment and building design, those radical approaches in terms of the design process, might be applied to create a new architecture for business as well. So we're really it's the essence of STIR, to stir together these two domains of activity. And to speak on them, we have first Professor Max Fordham. Now, Max has been a pioneer of the green building movement. Last year, he won the very prestigious Prince Philip Designers Award, the Design Council Award, for achievement in this particular field. He was also voted #1 out of the top 30 most influential people in the field of architecture and business, and has the Queen's Award for Enterprise as well for his firm. So he's been a pioneer in a new genre in business, in the building of businesses, and the building and the business of buildings. Now, we also have with us this evening Professor Irving Wladawsky-Berger. And Irving I knew in my many years with IBM. Irving has sat at the very top table of IBM for more than 20 years at the top table, and probably more than 30 years, a few more years even than me in IBM, as a member of the IBM community. He is now Chairman Emeritus of IBM's Academy of Technology and Science. And Irving will be particularly looking at new genre in business, a new architecture for business as well. We'd then be delighted for Professor David Gann, who heads the Innovation Entrepreneurship Group here at Imperial College's Business School, to join us to give his reflections on the speeches this evening and to participate with me and the other speakers in a panel where we can answer your questions.
The infrastructure of the United States is in a terrible state of affairs. There are 300 million people in the United States who require and demand a complete renewal of the infrastructure. There are plans in place or orders for 500 new airports in India. Okay. So the scale of the sort of issues that we need to think about are in that order of magnitude, millions of people or billions of people, and huge infrastructures just to support the daily functions of life. Now, the other side of this is, of course, that because in some parts of the world we've been very clever about the unpredictability of biological systems, we can live a bit longer, but we get, as we live longer, multiple and increasing impairments, which means that we cost more to live longer. And somehow we've got to make this balance. And I think that's a huge challenge. It's actually very exciting for us to work on. But one of the things that I think Max is pointing to on the use of fossil fuels is that every year that goes by and we don't do something extraordinary about this, the design envelope within which we have to work closes in on us because, you know, irreversibility is there in terms of what we're doing on the planet. So, you know, that's the sort of brief for the design. And I think that's a fantastic brief for a place like Imperial College because we actually have here, not the answers, but the pretense at least to tackle those issues in interdisciplinary teams. And there are some extraordinary things going on here, and with the Royal College of Art now, with Design London, and with our industrial partners. I mean, you know, absolutely, I'm sure many of you are working in these great projects like the Urban Energy Systems project or some of the health projects. So that's why I said earlier that you know, it's a great time to be in a university or to be studying these subjects because you're not dealing with the incremental improvements to the design of beams for bridges or something like that. You're dealing with grand challenges that really require some huge effort to tackle them. And that's what is exciting in the future, I think.
Let me just add just a couple of comments to that as well. You know, if it's 5 to midnight for most of the world in terms of sustainability, it's kind of like 2 minutes to midnight right now in China. I was at a meeting in China just before Christmas, and their leading urban planner for the Shanghai district just described very simply with the number of people that will move to the city and the changes that are required on the infrastructure in China. If it uses traditional building methods, it will use up all the topsoil and it will use all the coal to fire the bricks if it used traditional methods in 7 years. It will build the equivalent in the next 10 years of all of the infrastructure that exists in North America today. So it's 2 minutes to midnight there. Now, while the financial markets and the business world and the economic environment may be incredibly unpredictable. These issues of sustainability and the demographic changes are highly predictable. But what they do create is the most incredible challenge, as David pointed out, because it's only through innovation that will be in the 2 minutes before midnight that we address it. And that 2 minutes before midnight is this community of designers and engineers and business people that are sitting here, there. We're the ones who kind of made a bit of a mess of it, really. I mean, you're the ones who've, frankly, got the 2 minutes to really work on it. I'll pass over to Max for your comments on this.
Can I add something to that? Because at the moment, there's, let's say, the population of North America, Europe, and a few others, say 1 billion people have free access to carbon fuels. We're using it at about 600 tons per second. Slightly out-of-date figures, these. So then you say that the population prediction for the world is 10 billion people. And that's based on taking medieval Europe and forecasting it down forward to fully industrialized, stable population. And saying, let's take that and apply it over the world. You get to about 10 billion. Or is it 12 or 9? Who cares? It's about that sort of number. So then you say 600 tons per second of carbon fuels will turn to 6,000 tons per second of carbon fuels. Have we got 400 years worth now? Well, it might be. So 400 years turns into 40 years worth of carbon fuels. So if we start trying to define business systems that will enable 10 billion people to live at the kind of industrialized level we currently live at, then that must be an unsustainable decision to make. So we need to be preparing the world for a decision of, as for instance, Lovelock says, that the population he thinks will be 1 billion people in 70 years ahead. Well, okay, so 6 billion, so it's 5 billion people to be killed, plus another 4 billion who are going to be aborted in some way or other. I mean, that's that kind of thinking, I think, you can only engage in if you do it as a kind of joke, because it is too big, really, to think about seriously. On the other hand, we've got to be thinking about those things, somehow or other. I mean, like the Black Death was only 38% of the population were killed. And society survived through the Black Death, and indeed the villains became free men because there was such a shortage of labor. So you can look at things like that and think, well, you know, it's possible to imagine the world with 1 billion people in it. Then all these things about the infrastructure are not a big deal. On the other hand, there are some other big deals there.
Irving, would you like to add, we've gone on quite a journey from nanotechnology to the Black Death so far.
Sorry.
No, I think I'm speechless after what Max said. It's, you know, it may very well be that, you know, we've been thinking about sustainability in terms of sort of the energy and the planet, but if we think of sustainability as elegant designs and efficient designs, then you know, nobody wants to design things that are inefficient. And yet, a lot of what we have designed is bad engineering from that point of view. And it may be that sort of harmonious designs are going to be far more important than ever. For example, why does everybody have to come into big central places that use up all the concrete and everything else? Maybe a balance of central and distributed is going to start emerging. Maybe people will invent, the whole urban environments will get reinvented in some ways. And maybe there's a whole level of innovation in thinking through these environments, optimizing the use of energy and everything else around it.